And we're moving on with the subject of innovation. I welcome our next brilliant guest, Douwe Driehuis. He is the head of innovation at ISS Netherlands. Hello, Douwe. Welcome.
Hi, good afternoon.
Good afternoon. Oh, it's afternoon already.
It is, yeah.
Must have missed that. We're having fun here. So yeah, well, the real proof of understanding complexity, which is often the case with innovation, is keeping it simple and specific. So you are taking us through the specific steps of innovation to achieve specific results for the company or in your case, your clients.
Right.
And I thought that before we get there to your presentation, maybe you can share your personal inspiration around innovation. What's been the most important innovation in the branch during this past year for you?
In the branch in the past year, we see a lot of technology making sure that we can keep a distance, which I think is important in some work fields. And the other one, obviously, is the one making sure that we're safe in the workspace, and that can be through cleaning the air in various ways. So that's sort of the small but big things that have happened in the past year and have had an emphasis more than ever.
And personally, any innovational
Personally,
gadget or I don't know app, something that you're.
no, actually, the ommetje, that's great. Ommetje is the shit. Yeah, I use
write it
ommetje a
down
lot.
for me.
Yeah, it's a typical Dutch name, which means walking around the block. But it's great to stretch your legs and make sure you don't forget about that and make it part of your routine while sort of competing with your peers. It's great. Yeah.
All right, sounds awesome. Thank you so much. Let's listen to a presentation.
Yeah, sounds good. Welcome. Thank you for listening to this presentation about the innovation pyramid, done with innovation theater and ready to make real impact. I'm Douwe Driehuis. I have been with ISS for 2.5 years now. I don't think in this conference ISS needs an introduction, so I'll skip that. For about half of that 2.5 years, I've been working as head of innovation at ISS. Just to get a bit more personal in these digital times, I always like to tell a thing or two about myself that are completely unrelated to the topic that I'm about to speak to you about. And one of them being that I'm very tall. I mean, I'm not sure if you can see through the camera, but the people in the studio can probably see I'm 2 meters and 10 centimeters, which obviously sometimes throws people off. And as you can see, this little fella here, in my free time, coincidentally, I like to play basketball sometimes. Another hobby that I picked up in this past year actually is gardening. Living in Amsterdam, there isn't much space for a garden, but we have a little city garden at the outskirts of the city. 50 square meters, which is a great COVID-proof way of spending your time and learning something about veggies and stuff that are growing. So, enough about me. Let's talk about innovation solutions. And maybe you recognize actually one of these two. Cafe X on the left side, and Charmin, the toilet paper robot, on the right-hand side. Two solutions that have been pitched as the greatest innovation since sliced bread, but I have my doubts. So, Cafe X, it's technically a coffee shop where you can purchase your coffee, and basically what you do is you use the iPad to put in your order, and then the really expensive robot arm flips a cup and puts it under the coffee machine, which then just pours out regular old coffee like the ones from your and my office, and then puts the cup in front of you. And that's basically the whole purpose of Cafe X, which just looks really cool, but how useful is it really? And the other one, it's Charmin, the toilet paper robot. I think it looks very cute. What do you think? I think it's a cute looking robot, but what it does, in essence, is it brings you toilet paper when it runs out. So imagine sitting in the toilet in your office, and unfortunately, there is no toilet paper anymore, which I think hardly ever happens because you have the 2 toilet paper holders usually. And then you summon Charmin to your toilet, which has to go through elevators and then through a door. Hopefully it doesn't have a loose end, because otherwise there's the whole roll will go to the office. And then at the end, you need to like peek open the door and grab the toilet paper. I'm not sure how useful this is. I'm not sure who will use it. Like I said, looks pretty cool, but quite useless. So that leads us into why do innovations fail? And we set apart 3 main problems that we think are quite essential to discuss here. And the first thing is that we see a lot of solutions for non-existing problems. The solution is implemented, but it's sort of unclear as to how to apply it, who is it for, who will apply it, and etc. And we have a great example of ourselves that we implemented a self-service terminal, much like the ones that you know from McDonald's, where you can click your order together, and then go to the desk and wait until your number is called. We created something like that ourselves. It's not this one, this is a stock photo, but a similar one. And we placed it at one of the coffee outlets we had in one of our client locations. In the first 2 weeks, there was a tremendous amount of usage. We saw really a spike in sales that we haven't seen before. And then after 2 weeks, there was a drastic decline in that usage. And we went there to see what was going on. And then we noticed that next to the kiosk, about 2 meters to the left of that, there was a barista standing there smiling, waiting for you, dying for you to take your order. So what we noticed is we had placed a solution in a place where there was really no problem at all. There were no queues. There was no reason to order through the kiosk. You could just order with a really friendly barista standing right next to there. So then we replaced the self-service terminal to a high-traffic location with mostly to-go meals. And it's been standing there ever since. It's tremendous success. So that's the first failure in innovation, solutions for non-existing problems. The second one, endless innovation theater, and that's actually part of the title as well. We see tons of innovation events, hackathons, inspiration days, pitch competitions, all that good stuff. And sometimes they're very fruitful, both in network and in output, but often they lack a real call to action or simply are a covered sales event. We call these innovation theater. It looks great, it's a great vibe, and at the end of the day, you're entertained, but too often you aren't really able to translate these events into action. Lastly, and the third problem being the fact that innovation is often felt a little bit chaotic. Even though I'm a pretty structured guy, my projects can feel chaotic to some of my stakeholders. People are working on their operations, same thing every day, and then somebody wants to change things. They want to innovate, test whether it is better or worse when they change that little thing. And oftentimes people don't really enjoy that, which leads to aversion against innovation as a whole. That's why we apply a structured sort of chaos. But let's dive into that, into our innovation pyramid, because oftentimes we see that innovation starts with the solution. We see something cool on our LinkedIn or somebody tries to actively promote something. And yes, it might be super cool, but if you didn't think of the fact that you needed it before that moment, you probably never had a problem to begin with. So we like to take you through a few steps and making sure you have a better problem solution fit. And we do that by using our innovation pyramid. And the first layer of this pyramid actually is the shared vision. To do innovation, the first step is to build a shared vision together with your client or partner. So ISS, with its partners, like to build a shared vision together. We look at our core strategies of both companies, and then we look where the synergies are and find what the shared vision is based on those synergies in order to make that real impact. And at ISS, we believe in the vested way, which is a contract form where you go from what's in it for me to what's in it for we. So where normally a contract would be thinking, okay, how can I get the best bargain for me? In this case, we're looking transparently, this is what I need, sort of, and this is what you need. Let's see where we can meet each other instead of being greedy and thinking just about myself. And vested, obviously, it doesn't need to be applied to form a shared vision, but it allows you to incorporate innovation and vision in your delivery, as part of your delivery of your contract. So once you have defined this shared vision, you're able to go to the next step and choose or find already within your company the tools that will allow you to gather the data that you need, which is the next layer of the pyramid. Data, obviously, crucial point. Everybody's talking about it in all kinds of ways, and there's various sorts of data. We have subjective data. For an example, we do that through interviews with customers on sites, with panels, but also through service design thinking workshops. But we also use Leesman, which is a great tool, a survey tool that allows you to understand in a subjective way how your workplace is performing by measuring work activities, service activities, and physical features. Something we often like to do. But then we also have the objective data. For an example, coming from your badges system, seeing your entry system. But also sensors where you can have CO2 or temperature levels that you can measure. And obviously, an important one, your financial data. Where are you spending your money, and is it money well spent? You probably have tons of other data that you're not even know about, but that you might want to explore because you have set a shared vision. Anyways, lots of data, but it might feel like the Dutch good saying, you are running around with a chicken, like a chicken without a head. So that brings us to the next layer of the innovation pyramid, which is actually the analysis of your data. Wow, that was great English. Insights, that's the next step. You can look at data just by itself, one data stream, and trying to understand what's happening. but it's much more useful to combine the various data streams and see if that leads to different outcomes, new outcomes. We can do that through integrated dashboards, which we often like to do, but sometimes it doesn't need to be all that fancy, and we can just do a cross analysis by adding A plus B, which hopefully leads to the golden egg. When we have now created these insights, we have created the shared vision, so we understand where we want to move towards. We have collected the data to see where we're at this point and understood that through the insights. And only now we're moving to that last part, the part where the fun comes in and where all the LinkedIn promotions come in, the solutions. So designing your solution. This can be multiple ways. We at ISS do that mostly in two ways. One of them is in-house, so we look with our big suppliers here in the Netherlands, whether they have any good solutions for the problem that we have. Or sometimes we look, obviously, ISS is a global organization, so we look on a global level in other countries to see if they have found a nice solution for the problem we have at hand or the vision we want to achieve. And the other thing is we really like to do startup collaborations. Obviously, ISS is a huge organization, so if the world changes, it's hard for us to change with it like 180 degrees from one and the other day, while startups are able to pop up much quicker and adapt to the new environment much quicker, and that's why we like to collaborate and piggyback off of that energy. So that was the innovation pyramid, the 4 layers sort of explained, which is great. You're probably asking yourselves, nice story, but do you practice what you preach? Well, honestly, I can say that within the innovation team we do, and I can give many examples of how we do this with and for our customers. But one that we've recently been putting a lot of work in is not at all with our customers, actually. We apply the same sort of strategy with other goals. And this one in particular, I would like to talk to you about today to see how we apply it, which is the Plastic Pact here in the Netherlands. So obviously, as discussed, we start with the shared vision, but actually let's start with the partners here, because they're not a customer, as we mentioned. They are like-minded companies that want to achieve the similar sustainability goals that we have in mind as ISS. Obviously, you see some logos here that are definitely not the smallest, so they definitely have an impact. And with them, we created a shared vision with all these partners, and specifically pushed by the Ministry of Infrastructure and Water Management. All these parties have gathered and have agreed on a shared vision. And apologies for the English-speaking people that are watching, but I'll explain it briefly. What it says on the top, what are the agreements we made in the Plastic Pact? And there's 4 main goals that we want to achieve by 2025. The first one being, we want it to be 100% recyclable from design. So if we design a product, it needs to be designed with in mind that we can recycle it for 100% at the end of life. 70% of all the plastic should be recycled. We should start using 20% less plastic in general. And then at the end of life, the beginning of the new life, new plastics should be made from at least 35% old plastics or recycled materials. So these are actually, this is the shared vision. These are the specific deliverables and the vision that we have with all the people that sign up for the Plastic Pact here in the Netherlands, which clearly one of the important parts, as I mentioned, the next step is the collection of the data. And obviously, with the shared vision and the objectives that are stated here, it makes a lot of sense that organizations by themselves go check out what the baseline should be. And so we did as well. And so we asked ourselves, okay, how are we going to measure this? How much plastic we actually use or consume, or however you want to say it. And at first we thought, well, maybe we just call the waste provider and maybe add up the waste volumes. But then we came to the conclusion, maybe there's a lot of plastic in that stream that's not part of our sphere of influence. So let's say I go to the office and I bring my little sandwich bag and I add that to the waste stream. Then yes, that's technically coming in our waste stream, but that's not something I can influence, and I can tell you, no longer bring a plastic sandwich bag. So first we had to define our responsibility, and that's why we have the 2 sides here. Let me first start with Coca-Cola. This could be Pepsi as well. There's no sponsoring in this presentation. The Coca-Cola, they provide usually their beverages in plastic bottles in all sorts of sizes. Sometimes comes in cans, and really sometimes it comes in a glass container as well. But in essence, if we would like to continue serving Coca-Cola or Pepsi to our customers, it most likely will be in a plastic container. And I can go to Coca-Cola and say, hey, I no longer want your plastic containers. I only want I only want it in paper. I don't know. They probably would say, that's nice, we will think about that, and they will get back to me at some point. But obviously, it's not our direct influence that we can do something with it. On the left-hand side, however, we have to-go boxes, which obviously at the ISS restaurants, which serve really nice hot meals, sandwiches, and salads, and all sorts of things. I encourage you to enjoy that someday. We serve them usually on a plate, but if you would like and are busy, you can have them to go in a to-go container or in our to-go outlets where generally everything is in a to-go container. But this is something where we can decide, okay, we put it in a paper bag instead, because that would be much more environmental friendly. And obviously, this is our direct influence. Here we can actually make a change if we would like. So we made 2 streams in terms of measurement and started with the one we could influence the most. We were hopeful and ignorant and asked our supplier to tell us how many products they shipped to us, how much it weighs, what sort of plastics they were. And by now you're probably asking yourselves, why is there a scale on this slide? Well, measuring truly turned out to be a real pain because suppliers turned out to have little to no data. So we collected what we could from them, but in the end we actually went in and purchased the products and weighed them ourselves on the locations and then extrapolated the data from that. Obviously, we have hundreds, if not thousands of different products that we use, so we didn't weigh them all. For an example, we have 40 different sorts of trash bags. I really wonder why we need that many different trash bags. But anyways, we decided, okay, let's weigh one, the average one, and say, okay, it's that many grams is this sort of plastic, and then apply that to the smaller and the bigger bags as well, just to make it somewhat doable to see the numbers come to life. Over 2017, 2018, and 2019, we just finished the calculation estimations. And as we speak, we're getting the last data in for the year 2020. And unfortunately, it seems to have been a pretty terrible year in terms of plastic, but yeah. So that leads us into the next part of the pyramid, the insights. Actually, the totals of those various waste streams showed us some really low-hanging fruit of objects that we needed to be smarter with. So these were actually a couple of products that were in our direct influence sphere that we used a lot of. The old school coffee stirrers, somehow we still use them. Gloves, sometimes they're made from plastic, sometimes they're not. But anyways, we use quite a lot of them. The to-go box, as mentioned, unfortunately, we use a lot of the paper cups actually, but somehow, some way, the plastic cups come and slip to the cracks and are used at some locations. And then trash bags. We use tons of trash bags. That's actually one of the insights. Before going into this project, we thought, okay, in the right top, the to-go boxes, that's our major plastic problem. And now that we actually analyze the data, we can truly say that the trash bags are actually our biggest plastic problem. That's the one that we need to focus on the most and we'll have the most impact with if we change our behavior there, which obviously in 2020, everything was a little different, but from the years before, that was our thing. Then our indirect influence. So these are the products we purchase and we can only talk to a supplier to see if they would like to change the way that they serve that. We all know this gentleman, but it's not about him. It's about the plastic bottles. We sell a lot of water, both sparkling and non-sparkling. Butter cups, you always have them at a buffet or whatever, and you see, okay, pretty small and probably not that significant in terms of plastic, but in the amounts that we use them, they're quite significant. Then we have a typical Dutch delicacy called filet américain. I'm not sure, Anastasia, do you know filet américain? No, it's a Dutch sandwich spread, meat, I don't know, international, you're not missing out. And then we have obviously candies like Snickers, Mars, and all those kind of candy bars. Coca-Cola, which we already mentioned. And then we have this fellow at the right top who is quite enjoying his milk, just like the people in the Netherlands. We really enjoy our milk. We drink milk a lot, especially during lunch. And we have these plastic cups with a tin lid that we consume a lot of. So cheers to him. That actually brings us then in the solutions. And even though the pyramid is shaped like a triangle, we actually use it like a circle, where we find a potential solution and actually go back to the base and check whether it's in line with our shared vision, whether the data and the insights show us that it helps us to achieve what we have been hoping for. And we've done a first lap in terms of the plastic pact and gathered a deeper insight in our plastic consumption. And now that we're at the stage we're at, I can think of tons of solutions that those products in our indirect influence sphere can change. Like the Coca-Cola bottle. However, I'm not an expert in food safety nor in food packaging, so we need to talk to our suppliers and the whole chain in order to understand the various dependencies. And therefore, it's pretty good that we're all part of the plastic pact, and Coca-Cola actually signed in as well. So now we can talk with them and say, hey, we have a real problem here, and how can we solve this together? It's our joint shared vision, so you should join in and make this happen with us. On the indirect influence part, we have started, for an example, by looking at projects, how we can replace single-use plastics for reusable to-go containers. And there's obviously a lot of complexities, such as the return rate of these containers, but we're working on that. And as I mentioned, trash bags is huge. It's a huge problem. So we need to look at the various waste streams and see how we can apply that. But oftentimes, let's say we have 5 fractions that we separate the waste in, and paper being one of them. Paper obviously often is a dry good, so there's not really a real purpose besides that it's just convenient to put the bag there. So we're going to start trying to see what happens if we don't put a plastic bag there. What happens if we just put it in the container itself and let our colleagues take care of it that way. And we'll see what happens. But in potential, it is a little bit quick math here, but that could deduct our plastic stream by 20%. So that would be pretty significant. So if you have any great ideas for the trash bags and how we can solve that problem, please pitch them in the chat, because I'll be super happy to get a little knowledge from the group here. That being said, I've showed you some of the reasons why innovations fail, how we approach innovation, how we use the pyramid, but also a practical case and the steps that we took in order to apply it. One last mystery remains, which is the question, why is it shaped like a pyramid? Well, the innovation pyramid is actually a copy from the old Egyptians, obviously, where the top usually held the gold and the most important items and people, and the layers building up to the top were actually equally important, because without those layers, there was no top, there was no gold, there weren't no important people. So that's sort of the practice we apply as well. It all starts in the bottom and we work our way up to the gold. Thank you for attending this talk. I really hope you enjoyed it. And I wonder if you have any questions for me.
We surely do. I do. Do we have anything from the audience?
Well, as Ta is saying, I would say our biggest problem is all single-use plastics, not only trash bags, especially all the takeaway packages. That's what she would like to say to you.
Yeah, great. I encourage her to run the data as well, because that's what we thought at first as well. The takeaway packaging was going to be our biggest problem, and in 2020 it probably is, but the years before it showed that it just wasn't.
Niels, please let us know if we have any solutions on the plastic bags coming in the chat. In the meantime, I will ask you, Douwe, I mean, taking the idea to action through the course of innovation process, as in the pyramid, it takes certain kind of leadership, right? So as a head of innovation, what type of challenges do you have on a daily basis? And where in the pyramid do you see that part being most important?
The challenges we have on a daily basis, and where I think in the pyramid, let me just flip back real quick. The biggest part is making sure that we set the shared vision first, because like I said, most of the people jump right to the solution without really understanding what's going on, what are you trying to achieve, what's the problems, and that's sort of something that I always steer on. Like, okay, this is a nice solution. But is it just a solution because you like it, because it's cool, because it's nice, or is it because you actually had a problem and data to show it? And that's actually, I think, the biggest, well, not problem, but challenge in daily. Like, okay, let's start there and work our way up to understand really what's going on.
Well, Matthew is replying with, in Belgium we have biodegradable garden bags. Why not make these for normal bags as well?
Yeah, so the challenge with, I'm actually writing a little blog series, but the challenge with biodegradable is that oftentimes they are technically biodegradable, but the waste providers, they don't have the time or the machines to actually make it biodegrade. Some of them are, some of them aren't, but that's sort of the game that's being played now, that biodegradable isn't always the best solution, which it seemed to be for a while.
All right. Also, another interesting one from Carol is, let's focus back to COVID-19. We can see incredible increase of packaging. Any innovation on this one? I think is necessary as well.
Yeah, definitely. And that's why we, for the single-use packaging in terms of how we wrap our sandwiches, salads, we're looking at reusable ones, like I mentioned, because that could potentially help us out a lot. But then obviously I see that at home as well. If I go to the supermarket and my plastic bin fills up like crazy because everything is packaged, and even like a single cucumber is packaged, or paprika or whatever. And like I said, I'm not a food expert, but I highly doubt whether that's completely necessary all the time.
I have a question around the pyramid, actually. Can you use this pyramid as a learning or a development co-learning tool for your customers? Something you can actually grow together with?
In what sense grow?
Well, educating your customers on this journey.
Yeah, so that's why some of the customers obviously are front runners and they want to innovate them already intrinsically. They want that, and others want a more traditional facility management contract. And especially with those customers, it's super interesting to see. Okay, maybe we could work on this together as well, and we could create that shared vision and take those steps in order to really understand what you want going forward. Because obviously the services we provide, they're super great, but we need to look at the future a little bit to see what your need is and what the need of the employees that you have is in the future and how we can adapt to that.
Right. And that kind of puts you in the thought leadership position for your customers. And you yourself, personally, as a business too, where do you source your inspiration for prop tech innovation?
For innovation as a whole, like I said, I've only been with ISS for 2.5 years, and before that, I wasn't in the facility world at all. I was in the startup world. So I like to take inspiration from all sorts of sources, and then see how can I flip it and apply it in the field I work now. I think that's really strong, and that's how, if I talk to innovation managers at other companies in a completely different domain, you can still connect, because you can just have theory and try to flip it and apply it in your own manner.
Okay, can you name the name or recommend
So
a book?
one of the really cool sources that I get a lot of inspiration from is the T&W conferences here in. It's a competitor. I'm sorry, I'm probably not allowed to say that, but they
We're
have
open-minded here.
That's
all right.
They have a tech conference, so with all sorts of startups, but also corporates now, speakers from all over the world. Last year was digitally, obviously, but normally it's a big festive event here in Amsterdam, running into people from all sorts of ways of the world with all sorts of backgrounds. It's a melting pot of innovation, I would say.
Well, I was really laughing about the examples you gave on the beginning of the presentation about these useless innovations. What is your own favorite, completely unnecessary solution you ever seen on the internet?
My own favorite, I think Cafe X. It's my perfect example. Also because I think they went bankrupt and then they got revived, and now they're in airport and they tried to pivot a little bit. I think it's so nice. It looks so nice. But if you think about what it actually adds to, it's so little, in my opinion, and that I think those are the best. Because if you think about it a little longer, it doesn't make sense.
All right.
I would actually challenge you on that, on the toilet paper delivery, Rob. But I thought my son would appreciate that for sure.
Well, I already saw some robots who bring me a beer if I'm sitting.
Yeah,
on the
you
couch,
can
so
take it
that's
further.
really
Bringing
useful.
anything.
Is it now we're talking? Yeah, now we're talking.
We're ready for the pyramid, I think.
I have one more question. ISS is an international organization, and how do you share innovative examples made in other countries with other countries, and how are you doing that?
Yeah, so I didn't touch on COVID that much in my presentation. I saw a lot of people talking about COVID, but I stayed away from it. But I think that's something that actually helped our company a lot, because normally you'd obviously be in your own country and you still had the idea that you had to go visit another country in order to mingle and meet and understand each other. And now everybody just picks up Teams and dials in and from anywhere in the world, and you can share information, and you're much more open to doing that. So I think that happens a lot. The Teams communities that we have built in the last year, I think, are super fruitful, especially in relation to the comparison to the years before.
Okay. And do you have any suggestion how to be innovative at home, or work from home? Because you aren't together with your team, maybe via Teams or Zoom, but does it work out well?
Yeah.
Do you have any suggestions?
Interesting times, right? So we're working on that. Obviously, and this is super basic. It's not innovation at all, but and we actually launched a proposition for that called the ISS Home Space. It starts with having the right equipment, like a desk and a chair, and not sitting on the couch for half a year, etc. And only then, when you get those basics right, and then we are talking about another pyramid, which is the Maslow pyramid, but we won't get into that. If you get the basics right, then you can start moving up the pyramid to other layers and understanding what's going on there. Like you said, with colleagues, how do you connect? How do you stay connected with colleagues that maybe just joined? Or if you're a new joiner, how do you get to meet those people that you normally would meet just walking through the office? I think it's really. I don't have a solution. Obviously, there's tons of solutions like the VR. You can meet in VR. There's the hologram solutions. I haven't really seen somebody really in this space that I thought, okay, this is not a gimmick, but this is actually going to add super lots of value in relation to what we have currently. And I think already a step that we have built in the last year. Many of my colleagues, if I asked them, let's do a Teams call 1.5 years ago, they would have said, well, what is that even? Like, how does that even work? And I think we got to learn so quickly how we can collaborate online through Teams, and that's just face-to-face, but then also through online brainstorm sessions, through Mural or Miro or all those sort of tools. And we're building on those sort of principles. So from having a desk to being able to meet online, to being able to collaborate online, to actually feeling as a community online, which is the next step, and I think it's coming.
All right. I see one more question. Well, facility management is known as a business where innovation is no rocket science right now. Did you see that in facilities management, the innovations are speeding up due to COVID-19?
In some parts, I would say yes, especially those where it pertains our health and solutions that make sure that COVID is avoided in a way. And in other parts, then the next layer I see, for an example, robotics, them coming into play. They weren't ready mostly yet for this wave, but you can see, hey, there's a real added value here, and we can we should try to see if we can apply this in the future even more. But I think in the field of robotics, there's a lot going on right now, both in food and beverage, but also in cleaning, in lots of parts of facility management.
That's cool.
I can maybe just, we have 3 minutes to go, finish up with a question of all of this developments and innovation have created a massive flow of prop tech movement, I would say. How important it is at this present moment for ISS?
The fact that these innovations have started outside of our company, even like in the ecosystem in general.
The ecosystem in general, yeah.
Yeah. No, I think that's major. And like I said, I think the cross collaboration across borders has sped up as well because of the fact that we had this crisis. Yeah, I think it's great. I mean, obviously, it's great that the innovation has gotten a more prominent role. And the other thing I'm super happy about, and I also saw it in the last speaker yesterday from Twijnstra Gudde, that they showed that sustainability is really on the map, which you saw in the plastic pack presentation as well. And I think we really got a kick in the butt there as well. Like, okay, we really need to start working on this as a facility world, but also all the other industries surrounding that.
It was interesting to map it opposed to other important matters that all the businesses are coping with nowadays. So good to hear that. Well, I guess if we don't have any more questions,
it's time for a break, I think.
Yes, day 2 goes even faster than day 1, and so we just passed halfway of this conference part. I thank you so very much, Douwe, for a presentation, for all the funny and actually very realistic examples on how we can actually take it further from the idea to action and implementation. Thank you so much.
Cool. Yeah, thank you. My pleasure.
So we're going to have a 20 minutes break from now on. I encourage you again to visit partner lounges and sign up for a roundtable discussion or 2, if you can make that. Do explore the fun networking section, be active, be present, and look up the quiz that we're going to have in the afternoon after the end of the conference. So do enjoy your meet time with the colleagues. Please publish your posts, the pictures if you have, and welcome back in 20 minutes.